Hey everyone, Caleb with Antique Book Collective, and today I'm getting to you guys with the forbidden video that so many YouTubers are scared to make about their eBay businesses. And that little video is my best-selling stuff on eBay. So a lot of people, they won't list these particular things. They won't tell you guys these particular things because they're afraid that you might go out and buy these things and try to sell them yourself and cut them out of the market. And for me, I'm not worried about that because I love these particular books that I sell. I would love to see more of them on the market because more of them on the market means more of them are being saved from the dump. I know I've mentioned this in all my other videos, but guys, if it's not for us buying these books and reselling these books literally get thrown in the trash 90% of the time. And if they're not getting put in the trash, they're getting put in the recycling bin, which is basically the same thing because at the end of the day, those books are then dead. And I don't like seeing dead books. So with all that said, I'm just going to dive right on in. This is going to be a list video. It might be a little bit boring if you're not interested in any of this. So if you're not interested, be sure to check out a different video of mine. You can check that out below. But with all that said, let me just dive right on in. So first things first, antique Christian nonfiction books are my absolute best-selling item. So these antique books I find are normally like the I'm going to say 1860s to 1890s are my best little group of Christian nonfiction books. So these books are written by different theologians of that time, of that era. And for some reason, not only do those books sell really easily for me, I sell them almost... Actually, let me just think for a second. I would say I sell 90% probably of those within the first month. However, I do hang on to a couple of those for as much as like maybe 3 months. But I end up selling all these very quickly, especially compared to other things that I have on my eBay business, which I think is really cool. But in addition to that, these books can be worth a whole lot. I actually had one book. It was probably, I'm going to say this thick. It was a beautiful leather one. It had this like nice tan leather, not like the normal brown boring leather, but it was a nice like leather jacket, light brown one that you see on cowboys. It was like more of that kind of leather, which I thought was really pretty leather. It was a really light tan one, very beautiful. It was torn apart though when I got it, so I actually personally repaired this book, and it was on the book of Samuel, which is a book in the Bible, and this particular one I ended up selling for $300. I bought that book for, I believe it was just $1, it might have been 50 cents, I believe. It's been a couple of years, but that was one of my highlight ones. I thought it was a really cool book, and I was happy that I was able to sell it, because all I had to do was put the text block back to the rest of the spine and the covers. I had to reattach the covers. It was a lot of work, not a lot of work, probably took like 20 minutes of work, but I mean it was a lot of work of learning how to do that over the years, but I was able to save this book, and I was able to get some really good money. And this particular book, guys, I checked it out on Google, I checked it out on eBay, I checked everywhere for it. I could not find one version of this book. The closest thing I could to finding a version of this book was a PDF that someone was selling. I want to say they were charging $100 for this book as a PDF. So I had the real book, the real deal, first edition of this book, and I was able to sell it for that much. And that's something that you guys will find with a lot of these antique Christian nonfiction books. There's some really good money to be had for those books. And if you guys are interested in that, so estate sales, I have had great luck finding them. Friends of the Library sales at libraries, I've had great luck finding them. Goodwill Outlet, I've had great luck finding them. And the best place that I would say for you guys to go to is Catholic churches. Most Catholic churches, they have their own libraries, and those libraries have sales all the time. Maybe not all the time, but like once a year, a lot of these Catholic churches will have a sale, and they will sell books that their congregants read, and they will sell books that they have in their own library, and they'll sell books that they didn't even put into their library. So maybe their priest had it or someone else. And these books, guys, they can be some of the most amazing, profitable books for you to have, and there's generally no competition for most of these because you might very well have the last book remaining of these. There are books, guys, that are hundreds and hundreds of years old that are still in a church, and you might be the one that finds it, sells it, and makes bank. So with that said, I really encourage you guys to do that. And for the Catholic Church thing, it's not just at Catholic churches. There are plenty of other churches that have book sales as well. Episcopal, I can't pronounce the word right now. Episcopal, there we go. Those can have some really good ones as well. I had some really good luck at those, but there's churches of every single denomination probably that has these kinds of sales, so it's really worth going to. Another tidbit on that, I find that the ones in small towns and old towns generally do better than the ones that are in, say, like, I'm just trying to think of something in Oregon that's a newer town, so maybe like Astoria maybe is a newish town because, I don't know, with Oregon, it's pretty hard to do because most of our cities are new compared to the rest of the world. Like, guys, most of the cities in Oregon are less than 100 years old, or maybe a little over 100 years old. So I guess saying younger around here doesn't really work, but like, let's say New York City compared to Oregon, you're going to find a whole lot better of books in New York City because New York City's been inhabited constantly for quite a while compared to Oregon, or even better yet, Rome compared to New York City. Rome's been around a little bit longer, so that sort of thing. So with all that said, on to the next thing. I know I went a bit on a tangent there, but because it's my best-selling thing and gets me the most money, I thought you guys would like to learn the most information on that. The next thing is probably the highest volume sale thing, and that is Christian fiction. I sell them as mass market paperbacks. I buy and sell these mass market Christian fiction paperbacks, and they are the large print ones. Those are another one that does very well for me. The profit is nowhere near the nonfiction Christian books, but they do make up for that in volume. So for me, I actually started preparing for the recession that we are now in. I know the government's saying we're not in one, but the government's full of hooey 99% of the time. I would say 100, but I'm saying 99, so you don't say I'm a conspiracy theorist. But just look at history, just look at what they've said to us in the past. When 2008 rolled around, they said we weren't in a recession then either, so just take that as a hint. So with all that said, though, I was preparing for this recession a couple months in advance, and I started packing up and getting all the mass market paperbacks I could, because I knew mass market paperbacks do really well in recessions. That's a pro tip for you guys, because we're still in the recession, and even when we're not in recessions, mass market paperbacks do very well. Book sales generally, historically, do see an uptick during recessions, during downturns, during depressions. They do see an uptick, and it's because people are working to escape reality through fiction and also improve themselves through self-help nonfiction. So that's a pro tip for you guys. Take that one, run with that one. Please, guys, you can make some really good money. You don't have to have your business fail in this recession just because your normal stuff isn't selling. For me, my highly collectible items have stopped selling, but I've pivoted. I pivoted well in advance because I always do my research. I am a very research-heavy person. I study economics a whole lot. I'm the sort of person that will study everything and learn everything I can because I want to be knowledgeable, or at least like have a couple ideas of what someone's talking about when someone talks about something. So that's just what I moved into, though, guys. Mass market paperbacks, I actually sold out of those. I'll be doing a video on that soon probably, but I sold out of all of my mass market paperbacks for those. I have yet to pick up more of them. I don't think I will because, as I've said in other videos, I'm working on moving. But these books, guys, I buy them for 50 cents a piece at the absolute tops, and then I sell them for several dollars. It's a really good way to just turn around and make a little bit of money, easy cheesy, easy sale. And mass market paperbacks that are large print and the Christian fiction, I find, give you the best multiple on your money. You can buy them for cheap, however you could sell them for a whole lot more, and it has to be the large print ones, guys, or extra large or larger or some sort of version of that. And that is because that is for the old people. The old people, they love reading their Christian fiction because they aren't in it to read any gross cootie-filled stuff. They're in it to read a cute story like you see on Hallmark, or used to see on Hallmark before Hallmark fell. So that's something that these old people want. And old people, guys, their eyes aren't always the best. Even with glasses, they can't always read these books, especially when most books have like their average font be between 10 point and 12 point. They need something more like 16 point, which I know 12 to 16 doesn't sound that big, but that is what larger print constitutes as, is 16 point or larger. A lot of books, they'll go as high as like 20 point, and that is a whole lot easier for the older people to see. In fact, a lot of older people don't even need to read their books with glasses when it's that large, which is really nice for them. So they normally pay a whole lot more money for that. Even when the books are brand new, they pay a whole lot more money for that. So with the used books, there still is a good recovery for you to be able to make a lot of money on that. So when you guys go to a Friends of the Library sale, that's where I buy most of mine, is the Friends of the Library sales and Friends of the Library stores. A lot of retirement homes also have different sales, so those are some places that you guys can buy them and make some really good money on. I've done videos on this in the past, so be sure to check out, subscribe below first off, but then check out my channel. And I actually do talk about, it's called Love Inspired, so LOVE space inspired. I don't want to spell out inspired because I'll probably mess up, but you guys can just check that out. I do have a couple videos on that on my channel because it was a very important thing, got me a whole lot of money, and it continues getting me a lot of money because I do have a couple other books of Love Inspired. They're just not large print and they're still selling. So with all that said, that's my second big seller. The next thing for you guys to watch out for that's a good seller for me, and this is going to be a good seller in good times and bad, just like the previous two. And this third one is like self-improvement, antique homesteading, antique trades, all these sorts of things are books that do very well during upturns, downturns, and everything else that turns. So these books include, so for the trades sort of things, we're talking doctors, lawyers, pastors, all these sorts of things that are things that you go to college for. These books tend to do very well. I'd say a lot of that is because college people generally have to do a lot more reading than everyone else. However, once these people graduate from college, generally they stop reading. That's what statistics say, is a lot of those people stop reading, whereas just high school graduates tend to continue reading a little bit better. Sometimes the statistics are all over the board, but those are some professional career things that do have some very valuable books. So in a previous video that I filmed recently, I actually had a book on lawyers, and that book is worth like $130 or something like that. I paid $2 for it, I believe is how much it's worth. I know I paid $2 for it though. And that being a lawyer book is worth a whole lot more, and it's an antique one. The antique books, guys, those are worth a whole lot more than if you can find a lawyer textbook, say, from college. Like, yes, that lawyer textbook can be worth a lot, but if you don't sell it before they move on to the next textbook, you're going to end up sitting on this book. I have sold textbooks in the past that when I bought it, the book was worth $60, and then by the time I listed it, it was already out of print, like, not out of print, but like they stopped using it at colleges, so all of a sudden it went from $60 to being worth $6, because no one reads it anymore, which stinks when you have the new textbooks, whereas the old ones, those hold their value and they appreciate in value, which is really nice. The next thing though, the homesteading and the crafts sort of things. So by crafts, I mean like stuff that you would see an old man with a shop doing. So wood shop, metal shop, working with cars, all those things as antique books. For homesteading sort of stuff, I'm talking hunting books, I'm talking like butchering, I am talking fishing, I am talking literally building a house, all these sorts of things, and including family medicine. Those are all things that do very well. So like if you need this information to live on Little House on the Prairie and you want to be like able to survive, and if you're literate, those are the kind of books that you'd want, and those are the kind of books that guys that I do very well with. Those are things that I sell all the time. They're not always the biggest profit items for those last like homestead sort of books. They're not always the best profitable items, but they sell very often. And the reason for that is because a lot of people that like the homesteading, a lot of them are preppers, and preppers don't believe a lot of the stuff the government tells them and tries to sell them on, because we know the government lies. And the reason why they don't like the newer books for that is they're like, oh no, the government took all the information out on how to grow an egg, which, I mean, it's like, guys, you might be going a little extreme here, but that is something that a lot of preppers go after. That it's something that they like, is the antique books. And personally, I like the information in the antique books because it is more thorough than what you get in a lot of books nowadays. Nowadays, I've actually heard a joke about this. So like, let's think a car manual. Back in the day, they used to tell you how to like literally change parts on your car in the car manual, and nowadays the car manual literally has stuff on don't drink the battery acid, which would kill you. Don't drink gasoline, it'll kill you, like stuff like that. Like, the old books, it doesn't have as much common sense stuff, but it has like really high level things, whereas modern things, it's like, don't put your face in a lawnmower. Like, it's pretty obvious things, but they do it for lawsuits and all that sort of stuff. So that's one of the reasons, another reason why the people that like those homestead things like the old books, is the information is a lot more valuable, it's a lot more thorough, and it goes after things that a lot of people are afraid to write about nowadays. So those are some of the biggest sellers for me. Besides that, just nonfiction in general that are antique books does very well for me. I'm just thinking really quick. So yeah, nonfiction basically across the board does very well for me. I would say a lot of the ones on like, so back in the late 1800s-ish and early 1900s, before the world was really globalized, a lot of people would write books about, say, Africa, about their adventure in Africa, and they would write a book on this. And those books actually do very well because that's just something that there were quite a few made of, but maybe the printings weren't huge of them, like maybe they only made 2,000. So these books can be rather rare, but a lot of them came from very popular authors or very important historical figures. So those are books that can be worth a whole lot. The next thing, which I think is the most obvious thing, is fiction written by very, very popular modern day authors. Well, not modern day, but like authors that are popular even in our modern day. So we're talking Shakespeare, we're talking H.G. Wells, we're talking Tolkien, we're talking C.S. Lewis, all these people who wrote books I know C.S. Lewis and Tolkien are a little more recent, but all these people that have been around, their books have been around for quite a while. So for me, I have a Charles Dickens set. I've mentioned this one in quite a few things. The reason why I still have the set is it was a huge set. I want to say over 60 books maybe. Very large set. I've been selling off this set though, and Charles Dickens, guys, if you can find any of his books and if you can find anything that's in the 1800s, you made out, you're going to make some good money on those books and those sets. I have sold individual books of Charles Dickens from the 1800s for $40 up to $80. That's some really good money. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, since they're more recent, their books aren't worth a whole lot more. If you can find a first edition of those books, you can definitely make out and make some really good money, but those are some really important things. H.G. Wells and Jules Verne, those are some of the first science fiction authors. Old science fiction, old fiction like that can be really valuable. For me, the best book I've ever found was H.G. Wells, and it was the first edition of his. So guys, be sure to watch out for first editions of big authors like that who you at least are sort of familiar with the name of. If you are a big reader, you're going to know a lot more author names than the average pedestrian person, but even if you know a whole lot of things, there are going to be a lot of authors that you do not know. For me, I don't know a whole lot of the literary authors or whatever the stupid genre is. I don't even get that genre. Someone's tried to explain to me. I don't get it. But there are lots of authors that write different genres that you might not even know of because it's not your genre. For me, I love science fiction, so I know most of the science fiction authors, especially the old ones, because those are the ones I grew up reading because I like older things. A lot of people tell me I have an old soul and I belong in a different generation. Yes, I accept that. That's why I read books from like 200 years ago. I guess I'm a nerd, whatever. But that's just something that you guys will find. So with all that said, though, I hope that little list helps you guys out a lot. So again, I'm just going to go over the list quickly. So Christian nonfiction, that is antique. Christian fiction, that is large print, mass market, modern day. And then you have the nonfiction antique books for homesteading, careers, like professional careers, that sort of stuff. And then you have just antique nonfiction in general. It does take a lot more shopping around for those because there are some worth a lot and some not worth much at all. And then antique fiction, again, that has some really good ones, some really bad ones. Something that I will point out that I did not list in this particular list was children's books, antique children's books, guys. It's all over the board. Like the other ones, I find it skews towards it's worth at least something. Children's books, though, those can be worth like the cheapest I have seen for like a book that's like 200 years old and a children's book, it's like $2, $4. It's like, what in the world? This book's 200 years old. And the reason why these don't have the value is people don't want to read these as much because they have modern versions of them, and also because who are you going to read it to? You're not going to read it for your own enjoyment. You might put it on display, but you're not going to read it for your own enjoyment because you're an adult, and you're not going to let your child read it because it's a book that's 200 years old. So they don't have the same amount of value. And besides that, these books were done in very large printings. So the other books that I mentioned, the doctor ones, the homesteading ones, those might have had a printing of, say, 1,000 books or 2,000 books or something. These children's books, they printed back in the day maybe 1 million of them. So there's a whole lot of them out there, so there's a lot of competition of other people selling them. So that's why the value isn't this high. And there is, of course, a lot of books out there that are worth a whole lot in our children's books. So for me, I actually have some Wizard of Oz books. I want to say they are actually sitting beside me right now. But these Wizard of Oz books are first edition ones, and those are worth a whole lot. However, that's not always the case. You're not always going to find first edition really valuable ones. So I hope that really helps you guys. I hope I opened your guys' eyes on a lot of the best-selling things I do and what you guys might be able to get in on. I would like to point out again that all of the stuff I listed out was antique books, or at least vintage books. That's because that's what my interest is and what I have found does the best. You guys can, if you'd like to learn more about antique book selling, subscribe below, hit there, or check out one of my other videos, and I'll see you guys in those.